It's my pleasure to welcome back to The Truth John O'Connor. He is an author. We had him on a few months ago after he wrote The Mysteries of Watergate, What Really Happened, and Postgate. And there's certainly a lot of relevance in those books to what is happening today. John, welcome back to The Truth. And don't you think that the scandals of the Biden administration eclipse Watergate by an order of magnitude?
Oh, yes. Clearly, there is no comparison. And the reason BidenGate metastasized so much is because of a complicit media, because of a partisan media that really was in on the fraud. And that's in direct distinction. So we have 4 years of a disabled presidency and no one knows it. And it's not publicized, even though we in the public suspect that that was true all along, but there was no big outcry because of the media complicity. Whereas in Watergate, you had a very minor issue that was blown up by the media. So you have an oppositional media and you say, well, that was terrible what the Post did. They went too far and so forth. And I've written a lot about that. Most people don't understand how much it was blown out of proportion. But at least we have our autoimmune system working perhaps overtime in Watergate. But now what happens is when the shoe's on the other foot and there's someone on the left side of the political spectrum and the entire country is being defrauded, we don't have a real government because we don't have a real president, and now the media stands silent. So we're talking about, in both scandals, the media being the key player, and the contrast is just absurd. And again, this is something that should be reported by the media, and the media should be reporting. The problem is they have to report on themselves. And we're seeing right now that even when you see these confessionals with Jake Tapper, they're not really confessionals. They're, their defense pleas to the judge at sentencing.
Well, you and I are both cursed with the title of lawyer. They talk about the auto pen as an abuse of someone's authority. It's really forgery, and it's really theft of the power of the presidency of the United States of America, is it not? And aren't we severely underestimating the severity of the crime that was committed?
Well, yes, and more importantly, it won't get proven because Biden is too proud, and because he is the man. This is one of the problems, because he is the man. He's going to say, "Oh no, I approved everything. I approved everything."
Well, Mr. President, what did you approve? I mean, what were you approving when you signed this executive order? What was it about? What was the intention? I don't think he's capable of giving a responsive answer or one that makes any sense.
Here's the problem, John. I don't disagree with that. And you and I both know that he didn't authorize these things. But that being said, all we need to do is have Puppet Biden, and this is the problem with having a puppet in. Now the puppet says, oh no, I mean, I can't remember the details, but I authorized all this, even if just a nod of the head. Did this all the time. No, I was perfectly fine. Now,
Sure.
We know that's not true.
I'm not fine today, but I was fine then, and it's written on a note card that the same person who used the auto pen will give to him before he goes in to raise his hand and give his testimony. But I
That's
think,
right.
But if we were really serious about holding people accountable, the FBI would go in and investigate, and they would start questioning in separate rooms members of the president's team that worked in the White House, and under penalty of perjury and serious jail time, they would ask people who used the auto pen, who had access to it, what was their state of mind, and where was the president when it was done. And what conversations did he have? And I would imagine that, the recordings that undid Nixon could perhaps be present to shed light on the approval or lack thereof of the use of the auto pen, wouldn't you think?
Well, yeah, except for, here's the problem. There's probably no recordings, no Oval Office recordings. And so what you need is an insider to say that happened, that he did it without Biden really knowing about it, or that people talked about it. So you're going to need some honest insider. Now, during the last 4 years, insiders may have confided to third parties about what was happening, and then if you have that, then you can go back, put the official on the grill, and say, "We're told this by your confidant. Is this true?" And if the person says no, then maybe you've got them on perjury, so they have to tell the truth. So you got to work it that way. But it's going to be a really tough lift, and because you're in a situation where you've got a guy that's demented, so he may well let me put my defense hat on. He may well have just gone along and felt that he was understood the issue and said, yeah, you can do that. And he has no idea what the assistant is telling him happened. He may well have approved things without knowing what the hell was going on.
Well, my point is that he spent the last month of his administration in Rehoboth. He wasn't even in the White House, according to what I've read. So people had to know that the auto pen was being used at a ever rapid rate, to at least to have issued the thousands of pardons that he issued. And there've got to be witnesses and people that you could put under oath and question that would have to really tell the truth or face the consequence of jail time. I would think. I guess my real point is that is government ever going to be held accountable for its misdeeds?
Well, that's the problem.
And the people
that's
that
the
work
problem,
in
John.
government.
And I don't want to listen. I wish it were so that it was going to be easy to prosecute this, because you and I both know, and common sense tells everybody that's watching this show, that that's what likely happened. But I've done a lot of criminal prosecutions in my day, and I understand what criminal defense lawyers do. And this one is an acquittal, because you'll get somebody to say, oh, yeah, we know Biden, we would bring these through Biden, and he just give us a good old nod of the head and say, yeah, we're doing that. I went through all these pardons with him. Now, here's where I think we ought to go, John, on these pardons. I think you are going to find, I would be stunned, you could knock me over with a feather, if these people weren't getting big money for the pardons.
Follow the money.
Yeah, and so I think you can probably get some corruption charges on people who took money for pardons. And in so doing, as part of the deal, you can squeeze these folks to rat out the other people. You need somebody like that you can squeeze. And I think if you find somebody with some good payments in their bank account, you can then also get the people who are procuring the pardons. It might be a lawyer, might be somebody else that will, again, squeal in order to keep their law license. And maybe you can go there and at least get the whole pardon thing down on paper. And I think we'll find that, hey, look, it may well be that you sell a pardon and then you go to Biden one day and go through 100 names, or you go through his assistant and you say, well, the assistant says he has power, that he spoke to Biden. Here are the 100 names I want you to give to Biden, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Gosh, the assistant then told me they were all approved.
And now Biden can't remember whether he did or he didn't. So you can't establish a criminal intent. I got several things I want to talk to you about. I'm going to move us along. I'm not trying to be rude to you, but I want to talk about so much. We've got so little time. You're in California, just north of San Francisco. What is that, 4 hours from LA, 5 by car?
Well, you can get down there in 5, yeah.
So LA appears to be on fire. I don't know whether that's just what we're being shown and it leaves that impression, but Maxine Waters has the gall to go on national television and say, oh, these are peaceful riots. These are peaceful people exercising their freedom of speech. And it's just a lie. Do they not care about their credibility? Do they not have a conscience that directs them in telling the truth? But we can see it with our on television behind her while she's talking. What in the world is going on, and what possesses these people? Well,
first of all, I'm very happy that LA has taken over from San Francisco the mantle of being the dysfunctional part of California. So I'm
There's
glad
a
about
silver
that.
lining there.
Right. But one of the things, John, that is scary about Los Angeles is when you really get down to cases, there may well be as many as 500,000 to a million. I think 500,000 is a conservative estimate to a million illegal immigrants in the greater Los Angeles area. Of 5 million people, a million of them are probably illegals. So that part of it is kind of scary. And I think the people that are here illegally from years back and are good citizens, good fake citizens, and so forth, I think they more than anybody else decry this whole idea of the Biden border invasion. But what this is that this is an opportunity for all the various organizations like Antifa, BLM, those types of organizations. And I'm not sure BLM's around anymore after they've bought all their mansions. But that's a scary part of this, is that this is so organized and well funded. We have funding sources that are really trying to destroy the fabric of America, and you're seeing this right now. People are showing up with these packages of gas masks and other things to help the protesters. They're in uniform, they have radio contact with one another. There's a $45 million Biden grant to one of the groups, Chirla, that is helping this whole thing. So it's a very, very sick thing. And I think a lot more nonprofits are involved in this, NGOs. We have embedded in our system some cancers. Really, is the only way you can look at it.
Where do you think the money would lead us to? Where do you think the puppet masters are?
Well, some of it are people within the Democratic Party. I mean, if the Biden administration has given $45 million to Chirla, you have that issue because it gets them votes and it gets them, who knows what's happening in election with those folks. You can go out and come back with a lot of votes if you've got people that seem to be citizens. So that's one of the places it's going to go. And then, of course, you've got the regular suspects like George Soros. But you've got that's one of the issues here is this. And of course, then you have some labor organizations that I don't think are quite as important, but you do have that as well.
So we're talking about some of our leaders being willing to lie on national television. The fact of the matter is they're actually willing to take innocent lives along with them just for their pure political power and greed. Because that's what's happening on the streets of LA. If what you're saying is correct and it traces back to the Democratic Party, they are literally costing people's lives, not to mention the people they maim and paralyze and injure.
Now look at the summer of 2020, and that's one of the problems. None of that got punished. I mean, they took the January 6 people. If you were in the area of the Capitol and breathing, the government tracked you down and got you. But for the summer of 2020, nothing happened. And so those folks are all alive and well. And I think they're looking for a reprise of that. And this thing's got to be, there's got to be serious punishment, or this is just going to keep happening.
So Gavin Newsom is your governor, like it or not. Do you think that there's any validity to the pushback that he is giving about the National Guard and the Marines coming into the sovereign state of Los Angeles?
Well, of course not. First of all, the feds right now are not doing anything other than protecting ICE agents, but they're not exercising police powers right now. There's only a vague argument that because they're helping ICE, they're exercising police powers, but they're not. So there's not really even an argument on that. But I think Newsom, and this is what's sort of scary, is I think he'll probably get a lot of traction within the left part of the Democratic Party. And this is a real test case to see if that has traction, because I do believe even within the Democratic side of things, I think most Democrats watching TV are watching in horror. And will their anti-Trump thoughts, their Trump derangement syndrome, overtake their good sense. And let's see how this works, because he's clearly establishing himself on the left side of the party now. He had been making some moderate noises, and so this may help him, he thinks, in his presidential run. So we'll see how this takes off. I think it'd be terrible if it worked.
Well, I saw him on television last night, and the way that he talked about Donald Trump was shameful. I could have mistakenly thought that I was listening to Letitia James. It was the same, spewing the same kind of hate and rhetoric that she did when she was running for Attorney General in New York. In the minute that remains, you've discovered that the FBI has some place that it's, well, you didn't discover it, but you are helping to reveal it, that the FBI has a special place that they can hide documents that don't get noticed in Freedom for Information Act requests and otherwise are not discoverable by other law enforcement agencies or people who have subpoena power.
That's right. I believe John Durham in his Russiagate investigation didn't know that it's a tranche of documents within the FBI's Sentinel system, that's their information system, that has a portion of their system no one knows existed, no one knew existed. So if you do a search query, it's called prohibited access. The search query does not turn up any of those documents. It will turn up something called restricted access documents, which may be highly confidential national security documents, and you think you're getting everything. At least you think you're getting the titles of everything, even if you don't get those national security documents, you know they're there. But what happens is there's a big tranche of things that no one knows are there except for a few people within the FBI. I think Congress doesn't know about it in all their investigations. I don't think John Durham knew about it in the Russiagate investigation. And query, did Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General who did a Russiagate investigation, did he know they existed? If he knew they existed, query, was he sworn to secrecy? So one way or the other, either Horowitz is in on the scheme or he's been a defrauded victim. But no one, and if you look at everything from the Ukraine, I mean, remember the FBI was right in the middle of the corruption investigations in Ukraine. People forget that James Comey had an agent right in there in Ukraine at the time of these Hunter Biden's corruption stuff. You go to Russiagate, you go to Hunter Biden laptop, you go to the Seth Rich murder and so forth. All of these things the FBI is involved in, all of them probably, there's only two explanations for documents in there. Either they're inculpatory of the FBI and its favored parties, such as Biden and Hillary Clinton, or the documents are exculpatory of its enemies like Trump. In many cases, I suspect they're both.
I was going to say.
So you will have documents trapping Trump and Trump's people, in which Trump's people they're trying to make guilty, and in fact the FBI is breaking the law because they're doing FISA applications that are knowingly false. So that's what I think is in there. If we get to it, it will be a huge scandal.
So now you know it, and I know it, and our listeners know it. Surely Kash Patel and Dan Bongino know it. Do they have the guts and the backbone to allow the American people to look behind the curtain finally?
I'll say this about those two guys. I know them both, or at least I've talked to them both. They mean business. They're the real deals. They're not gonna act tough and then not do anything. They're gonna do something. So it will be a hard slog, because what's gonna happen is the FBI is gonna claim all these things that you're getting into are confidential, and therefore you can't publicize what we've been hiding. So that's a battle, but they will get into it, and they will have the clearances, and they will be able to do some things that I think if I were James Comey, I'd be squirming a little bit.
Well, thank you, John O'Connor, for coming back on The Truth. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish we had more time. We're going to have to leave it at that for today, but I do hope you'll come back soon, and I always enjoy our conversations. Have a great rest of your weekend.